Hey, you guys, it's Petey. I finally set up a proper camera mount. The other day or last night, I was on here talking about how loud this was, this little test amp. It's got a signal generator in it and quick connects for your input and output of a circuit. Also, a 9-volt port to power your circuit. So it's 12 volts busted down to 9 through a V-reg. There's a signal generator circuit and then the punch amp. I don't call it the chime amp. Um, I was friends with someone and I had turned them on to this amp because they were playing around with the noisy cricket or the little gem. I forgot which one. And then they took that diagram and put their name on it. And later on, someone else, Frederick Legion, I believe, uploaded that image, but he credited the other guy. So anyway, if only I would have put my name on it. I I wouldn't do that though. So yeah, this thing is a piece of crap speaker that we bought for a pair of them for $2 at Goodwill, and they were four, I think, but then they were like half price, and they were so cute I had to get them. And then I was like, hey, I'm gonna build a signal generator with a little amp, and the reason that I use the punch amp, I'm not calling it the chime amp ever. Okay, it's a punch amp. The reason I'm calling a reason I'm using the punch amp is because I bought a bunch of those chips, and they weren't cheap. I've got like probably 5 left now, and I ordered another 10, just because they're simple to build, they're versatile with what you can power them off of, and there's a JFET on the front end, which I like the way JFET sound in guitar circuits. So when I tested this last night, it wasn't anything spectacular until I hooked it up to my multi-effector, my NUX MG30. Now, mind you, I have another amplifier sitting right next to me. This is going to kill me to get this. It's a Radio Shack Minimus 7, which has a tweeter. Now this amp, oh, this runs off of a single 5-volt battery. It's rated at 5 watts, and it's probably more like 2 on this. But this Minimus 7 is a beefy little speaker, and it's got a tweeter. So if you're playing through a modeling device with amp sim and cab sim, this is a better idea for as far as it performing. There's more information in those amp and cab sims, and so you just need a full range speaker. Anyway, I built this test rig and I hooked it up to my multi-effector, and it was so loud. Now, I consider this a micro amp. And in the micro amp classification here, we have this 9-volt. This is like really a test amp. The MA203. It's got a 9-volt battery. This is a first act. And it's got a turbo button, which I think that shunts pins 1 to 8. It might shunt it through a resistor, maybe. But that will give you like 200x gain. So if it's not distorted enough, and I really hate any guitar amp, even the dirt boxes, the distortion boxes that use the LM386, the noisy cricket, the little gem, smoky cigarette amp, any one of those little amps, they all use the same chip, and cigar box guys love them because when you turn your guitar volume past a half, It's square wave. It's just unbelievable distortion. And I mean, you can try to get it clean. You can play with it, and what you'll hear on the clean tone is a distorted signal, like kind of on top of it, but in the distance. Like there's another distorted guitar back there. And then the other thing with that is the release. When the note fades out, there's this like distortion. So I mean, I guess if you just pick it up and you're going da 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 da, playing your two songs that you know and you never pause. Like me, I'll like hold a note and have it sustain. So some guys, they love the little cricket and the noisy gem because you don't need a pedal. You plug in and it's Metallica sound, it's not a pleasant distortion. Trust me, it sounds like ass. All of those things sound terrible. And I don't understand why people love them except for Emperor's New Clothes Syndrome. Look at my amp that I built. Which, hey, I'm doing the same thing. I'm here showing off my amps too. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if they sound horrible, this one I got, it's a Fender thing. It's called a Mini Deluxe. It's got a on-off drive, a tone, and a volume. And this little amp has character. I like this. I'm not sure what it costs new. I wouldn't want to find out because I'm gonna go out on a limb that it's not cheap. Hey, is there Q-tips up there?
Yeah.
Oh, baby, thank you so much. So the Fender one is the fanciest micro amp that I own, although this is more geared towards a clean and then Fender style breakup. So it's really got a mojo. It's really got a thing, which is great. And ultimately, running into something like this, I was hyperventilating when I saw this. I was like, $5. So yeah, that's the Fender Mini Deluxe, and then of course the micro amp of all micro amps, the Marshall MS2, which this you can plug into an external speaker and it'll rock. You can play it through a 4x12. That uses an unusual power amp chip, and it's like a lot of times you'll see a microchip will be, or an op amp or whatever, it'll be like kind of square with the legs on the side, or a rectangular. This is just a row. It's like an 8-pin chip in a row, so it's like they must have got a deal on those. Anyway, I like that MS2. That's really great as a pedal. You could put that in front of an amp and use it as a dirt box. This here, the idea with this was just to have the signal generator and then a switch to actually play your guitar through it. So it's got these inputs here. When you build the circuit, it's just got wires hanging off of it. You plug your input wires in here, your output wire goes there, and then back here you can get 9 volts for your circuit, the pedal that you built. Immediately when you're done soldering, you can plop it up here and then turn this on, and it will do this test tone. And then you can hit the switch, and it'll go over to this jack and play your guitar through the circuit and see additional testing. And the reason for that, I hope you haven't heard me explain this 5 times already. When you first finish it, a lot of times there might be some troubleshooting to do, or you have to flop some wires for some pots because the controls are functioning in reverse. And that may be user error, maybe that they weren't labeled or whatever, labeled incorrectly, or maybe you misunderstood. So I prefer to do that with a test oscillator rather than plugging the guitar in right away and having to go over and keep strumming the guitar and going back to troubleshooting, strumming the guitar, or asking someone to play it. So I got in the habit of using a test oscillator, and then hooking that up was kind of a hassle. And then when you're done with that phase of the test oscillator testing, you know that the circuit's working. You know that the knobs are responding reasonably how they should. When you turn them up, it's increasing, and it's stable. You know, it's not crackling or popping. You've built a stable circuit. Because sometimes you'll build it and you'll turn it on, and it'll be like, and then you'll go in there and like fix some solder bridge, and that's all it was. And that's where the test oscillator comes in. But the next step, you really ideally want to have a guitar. So this is the only thing I've ever seen that does that. I've never seen anything do this, anybody make anything like this. And when I plugged it into my multi-effector, my NUX, I couldn't believe how unbelievably loud it was, this speaker. And it's a punch amp, which is like a 1 watt or a half watt, I forget. It's an alternative to a Noisy Cricket or a Little Gem, and the chip is more expensive. Those Noisy Cricket amps you can build really cheaply. You can get the chip for like maybe a nickel or a quarter at the most. Whereas this chip, I think I paid $5 for 10 of the chips. It's like 1 watt maybe or a half a watt. And it's a very simple circuit. It's got a JFET, which is a transistor that on paper kind of behaves similarly to how a vacuum tube behaves. So the first stage coming in, it gets goosed by this JFET, and that's kind of why I like that. That amp that I showed you, this wooden one that goes with the Radio Shack Minimus speaker, that's just a chip. There's no stage. I should have put a buffer on it. I really should have built a J201, a Tillman buffer. You can do whatever you want. You can put an overdrive in it. I mean, really, see that, the reason I didn't is because that's for plugging into a multi-effect. And that multi-effect has a buffer on the output, so it's kind of a moot point. But, yeah. This one uses those punch amp. You could just as soon buy a chip amp and put it in here. They've got, like I'm saying, if you like this idea, you have a pair of old speakers and you want to play around, you can go on eBay and just buy the chip amp. They've got the tiny one that's as big as a postage stamp. They got 30-watt ones. This is 12-volt ceiling. I mean, you can get a 600-watt Class D amp, you know, if you got a 48-volt 10-amp power supply. I'm talking about realistic, and this runs off of 3 of the rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. And this one has a voltage regulator to rein that in down to 9 volts. The amp runs off the 12, but the signal generator and the output for the to power the pedal is 9 volts, coming off of a voltage regulator circuit. And the LED, see the LED? I got one yellow and one green. They're mix and match. And I'm excited to be finished with this. I think they look like something that you would see in Doc Brown's lab, you know? I just think these are cool. And at some point, I am going to take these out with a multi-effector and either set them up on my patio or we'll probably go in the car. We'll probably take a ride to the nearest forest preserve or vacant lot, and I'll throw it up on the trunk and do a quick demo video so you guys can hear those two. It'll be neat, a little stereo pair of amplifiers. And again, this was just something fun for me to do. I don't think that I'm awesome because I build amps. I'm not going around telling people I build amps. Because when you say that, people think tube amps. And this is like, it's a powered speaker. You know, it really is. I've done a little bit more like the last Sirius amp that I built had a Lay Louie on the one side, the other side it had an Angry Charlie with a noise gate on the front. I built one last year. It was a Marshall JFET preamp, and it had a spring reverb, which was a real pain in the neck. So you can laugh, you can poke fun at me because I like playing around with this stuff. But really, living in an apartment and less is more, you know. And with the back injury, I mean, I played bass for a long time, and I had a trainer, or YS, Yorkville Sound, Block 250B. And B stands for fucking back surgery. Anyway, you guys, check out that hoakin, that beef hoakin stock. What's it called?
Beef shank.
Beef shank. This is like what the slaves ate. All right, you guys.
Oh my God.
I'll talk to you soon, and peace.